Okay, we are waiting for, I'm not sure if this other wholeness on the other side is one of those. Um, Commissioner Wholeness, if you were put your virtual hand up, there are two Dale VC Wholenesses on here. Okay. All right, we're going to try this again. Sorry about that. That was interesting. And so, as I was saying, what we need to do, our job is to get our community information. It's scary, quite frankly, how many folk who are just saying, I have no idea who the candidates are, or I don't know anything about them. And so our job is to make sure that they have an opportunity to hear from you. And once you, quite frankly, once you leave our bubble, you have regular people who are working every day who are not watching the news. They're just trying to make ends meet, and they may not be in traditional places, and perhaps they haven't heard you all being there. And so this gives an opportunity to then say, this is this is someone who has expressed an interest in sharing with me their position, and perhaps that'll give some people an opportunity to get more information before they cast their ballots. I have spoken to the supervisor of elections office. There, the numbers are not what we hope thus far, which is bad, but it also gives people an opportunity to get more information so they can make more of an educated vote. And so, with that, we are going to start with a 2-minute opening. We will start with, how about, we'll do ladies first. Congressman Sheila Sherfus McCormick.
Good evening, and thank you so much, Marcia, for having me here on this platform. Thank you so much to the NAACP, Fort Lauderdale Broward. I'm your Congresswoman, Sheila Sherfus McCormick, and in these last 8 months as your Congresswoman, it has been such a blessing, and we've been able to I was able to bring the Secretary of HUD, Marcia Fudge, right into our district so we could talk about how we could bring more money. From that conversation, we did find money in emergency management to train corporations and train people to participate more on the funding and development of houses. But we also worked hard to bring $676 million in for. In addition to that, we've been fighting to ensure that we can have more our inflation going down. But at the end of the day, I'm a mom, a wife, and before I was your Congresswoman, I was a healthcare executive who attended Howard University, University of Maryland for my master's in business administration, and St. Thomas Law School. I do this because I love it, and I love the community that loved me first. When everyone counted me out, it was this community who loved me and helped me raise my daughter so I can go to law school. And so this is my service of love to ensure that everyone in our district, especially our marginalized and Black community, can live a life of equity and inclusion and free from any kind of intimidation. Thank you, Marcia.
Commissioner Holness, you're up.
Well, thank you so much, Madam President, for hosting this event. And let me thank all the current members and leaders and past members and leaders of the NAACP, an international organization well recognized for its work in civil rights. Without the NAACP, I probably wouldn't be here in front of you because you and us as an organization have moved the needle to be a place where Blacks are no longer sitting at the back of the bus. I'm a lifelong member, and thank you and the organization for supporting many of the endeavors that I've brought forth in Broward County to ensure that we have inclusion, that we have opportunity for all, and that we are working to create prosperity for all our people and end in the cycle of poverty that plagues our community so much. In Miami-Dade County, the poverty rate for Blacks is 24%, in Palm Beach is 20%, in Broward County is 15%. And there's a difference in Broward's numbers because people like myself and you, President Ellison, has been at the front of the line, ensuring that we change things, investing in our community, ensuring that we have equal opportunity, civil citation programs that you led so valiantly, that I've been able to work with you on over the years to expand that to adults and to ensure that we're not putting our young people in prison for minor misdemeanor offenses, but also to work to ensure that contracting opportunity, business opportunity for women, small businesses, and minorities are included. Moving that in Broward County in the 10 years that I've served, 12 years that I've served, from 10.25% to 55% last year, representing $245 million. And that is one of the reasons why we have much lower poverty rate here, because we've been invested in the Black community and helping to ensure that Black opportunity exists, something that I've been at the forefront of. I ask you to allow me to continue this service. Dale Holness for U.S. Congress District 20.
Thank you. And I believe it's Vice Mayor.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Thank you, President Ellison. I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Ben Sorensen. I'm not running against the Congresswoman or Commissioner Holness, thankfully. I'd be in trouble if I was. Great folks. I'm Ben Sorensen. I'm the Vice Mayor of the City of Fort Lauderdale. I'm running for Congressional District 23, and that's kind of on the east side of Fort Lauderdale and the east side of much of Broward County. So Deerfield, Pompano, kind of east of 95, and then goes into Boca Raton, and then Coral Springs, Margate, Tamarack. So a great district, great community. I'm the Vice Mayor of the City of Fort Lauderdale, City Commissioner. I'm a former teacher. I've been in the United States Navy for going on 15 years, operating at the highest levels of our national security apparatus in the Pentagon, working for the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Most important job, though, is husband and father of 2 little girls. And I'm also a pastor. I'm a 3rd-generation Presbyterian minister. I'm a police chaplain for the Hollywood Police Department. And I'm running for Congress because it's been instilled in my bones a life of service. My dad at a young age moved to Atlanta, Georgia, because he heard about amazing civil rights leader that was fighting segregation. And my dad joined a small organization at the time called Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And my dad helped organize Freedom Riders rolling through the segregated South. And that's kind of the family I grew up in. So fast forward to my life here in the city of Fort Lauderdale as Vice Mayor. Really proud that we were able to get gun shows out of our city parks. And as a member of Congress, I'm going to fight to renew the assault weapons ban, fight to have national background checks. I'm also really proud of the investment we in the city of Fort Lauderdale have made in Sistrunk Boulevard. Through the CRA, we have invested over $100 million in minority-owned businesses. We've invested in a brand new YMCA. And then lastly, I'm really proud of the work we've done in policing. If y'all remember, after George Floyd was murdered, protests, I worked with LaToya Ratliff to reform policing in the city of Fort Lauderdale. As your member of Congress, I'm excited to do more of that. President Ellison, thank you.
Okay. And so we want to talk about priorities. So assume that each of you win. You, Vice Mayor, in your district, and Congressman and Commissioner Holness in yours. Tell me your number one priority, what you would like to accomplish, and how do you think you'll be able to do that? We'll start with the Vice Mayor. The very first thing that you would do upon your election.
Thanks, President. More affordable and workforce housing dollars coming federally back down to our community. We're the most cost-burdened community in the country. When you look at housing and transportation as a percent of salary, we are the highest percent out of anyone else in the country. I've been part of the Continuum of Care Board that's helped get increased federal funding. We need more because we can't rely on the state of Florida because our governor has failed us by sweeping the Sadowski Fund. That's job number one for me. Thanks, President.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Holness, 1 minute.
Well, I'll continue to work of ending the high level of poverty that exists within the Black community. And how do we do that? We target funds to those communities that have high poverty, high unemployment. And that's District 28, by the way. We have the highest level of poverty and unemployment here. What I was able to do in Broward County is look at the zip codes that had the highest level of poverty and unemployment, and we target funding there first. We must do that at the federal level. We might not be able to say we're going to give the money to Black folks, but when we look at the zip codes in our country that have the highest level of poverty, highest level of unemployment, and they've identified that now through the empowerment zones That is not doing what it needs to do for the people that live there. But we must now put early childhood education funding in place, expand that to ensure that our children are getting a good start. Put funding in place to give technical support for small minority women-owned businesses in these communities, and ensure that they have access to capital to grow and end the cycle of poverty, increase homeownership in our communities.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Congresswoman Sheffield McCormick, upon your re-election, what will be the first thing you'll tackle and how will you do it?
Well, the first thing we'll be looking at is economic inclusion. The reason why I'm focusing on economic inclusion is because we've seen the most investments that actually have been labeled, written in for minority communities and marginalized communities and rural communities. So what we have to do at this point, because we have the distribution already in flow from the $1 billion we announced when Vice President Kamala Harris was here with me last week, from the funding we got from Marcia Fudge, from HUD, with all the funding coming in, it's about time for us to now incorporate inclusion. What inclusion looks like is making sure that now our district is getting the funding and that we actually have participants who look like us, who are working, who are trained to work in those projects in our neighborhood. That what's happened before is that we've seen money come down but not hit our neighborhoods. And that's because the oversight wasn't present. The coordination and collaboration wasn't there. And honestly, there wasn't the language being written into the laws to make sure it's a requirement. Now that's a requirement. I've been sitting down with the heads of every department and asking them, how are they meeting their goals, their marginalized community goals? How are they incorporating? How do they plan on training the community? Which is very important because we've already set aside that you have to be inclusive. And sometimes their answer to us is, well, we don't have enough. Now we are training our people in the community to work. We're training them to get these jobs. And with that, I've also—
That's time. Thank you, Congresswoman. We'll continue. So we've watched the news and we've seen our Haitian brothers and sisters, I believe, combined within the last 10 days about two rickety, I don't want to call them boats or ships because they were barely seaworthy of that, doing everything they can to make it to the United States. And clearly there has to be some solutions. And in particular, Congressman Hasten was certainly our champion when he worked, I mean, literally for decades with the Haitian family who were just trying so desperately to live, to survive. And so I'd like to hear from you what your thoughts are and what can we count on and look forward from you should you be successful. We will start with Commissioner Holness.
So Marcia, let me tell you that I've been working at this for quite some time now. It's not new to me. I've been in almost every place in Haiti. Worked with the past three presidents to bring some economic uplift, hosted events here to bring them, and also take businesses there to Haiti to look at it. We must build a similar plan to what we did with the Marshall Plan, with Plan Colombia. We utilized that plan to defeat the narco traffickers and the guerrillas, which means that we must invest directly into Haiti, directly to the people. We must put security measures in place in Haiti so that people feel safe. I hosted one of the mayors of Port-au-Prince last year on a Zoom to expose the opportunities that exist in Haiti. She called me this past week and said she doesn't feel safe anymore. She's going to move back to the United States. That's something that we must do. We must also ensure that our policies are fair and that because someone is Black doesn't mean that they go in the back anymore. And that's what's happening with our immigration system, unfortunately, that when you look at the treatment of Black immigrants, it's totally different than those from other countries. And that must end. And all of us must collectively lend our voice to that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. You know, I want to, so let's speak specifically to policy from your seat as a congressperson. Is there legislation that you would propose that would help in some way? I watched something on Sunday where there was one of the leaders has proposed a number of different things, perhaps assisting with maybe the gang violence in Haiti, or a number of things that went. But what can you see from your space as a congressperson to make a difference sooner rather than later? Let me just go to Vice Mayor Sorensen.
Thank you, President Ellison. We're a country of immigrants. My family is a family of immigrants. I've worked at the United States Southern Command in the Navy for the past 14 years. One of our primary military missions at US Southcom is not just military assistance, but humanitarian assistance. We have the USNS Comfort, which is a Navy ship with 400 hospital beds, surgical abilities. We deployed that post-Haitian earthquake. We need to, as a member of Congress, I'm going to increase the funding, not just for humanitarian missions but for security assistance to Haiti for two reasons. One, it's what our democratic values are as a country. So helping our brothers and sisters in Haiti and Latin America is the right thing to do. Two, it's in our national security interest. When we can secure, uplift, and help bolster the security and the government functioning of our brothers and sisters in Haiti, we are more secure, they are more secure. As a member of Congress, I'm going to increase dramatically the military assistance and humanitarian aid so we help our Haitian friends there in their home country and ensure that there is a legal and helpful and expedited pathway for them coming here.
Thank you. Commissioner, I'm going to come back to you because I didn't really get the answer I was looking for, but perhaps I didn't state the question properly. So I'm going to go to the Congresswoman. If you will share with us legislatively from your federal space, what will you do if you are successful?
Well, right now, me and Congresswoman Val Demings, we're actually requesting for a special envoy to go to Haiti and be actually on the ground. We were supposed to take a trip to Haiti this month. However, the instability has grown to a point where we can't even have a delegation to go into Haiti. So that's what prompted us to have a delegation that's present, that's accessing it. In addition to that, we increased the funding for stabilization. Initially, it was $17 million going in for police and police training. We've increased that 48 million. And right now there's actually been a gang war going on in Haiti for more than 10 days. And with this gang war, the police are actually making gains. And that's because we've been training the police. What we're working on now, what I'm specifically working on, in September, we're going to have all the leaders here so we could talk about not only just building a presidency and a prime minister, but actually a government that can actually prosecute. Because with all the funding we're putting forth for police, what good is that money if there's actually no judicial system to hold anybody accountable? In addition to that, we started extraditing a lot of the gangs that we have in Haiti. The people actually live here and they're getting guns. So we're going to start putting sanctions. I'm pushing for sanctions for the Americans who are sending barrels.
Thank you. Let's go to Commissioner Holness, if we will speak legislatively from your seat as a congressperson.
Certainly. So one legislation that needs to be really pushed rapidly now is to ensure that those who are here get a pathway to permanent residency. Those who are TPS holders, those who are DACA holders, that legislation should go through now, because that will help to ensure that they are stable here and that they can earn a good living, because remittances right now is what's saving the people of Haiti from starvation, those that are here. So that's one piece. The second piece, I didn't get to the specific legislation, but working with the Haitian community and the Haitian people to build a plan that is sustainable, that's long-term, which means funded. It means we must put money there. We've done a good job helping the Ukrainians. Haiti is right here. They're suffering as much, in my mind, and the billions that we've sent to them, why not put $1 billion here now into Haiti to help with this plan that will then also assist them in building their industries, directly go into the local communities, what's called the Kazakhs. There's 156 communes in Haiti, and they're subdivided into what's called Kazakhs. Send the money directly there, not through the central government, not through NGOs, but direct funding of at least $1 billion going towards Haiti.
Thank you. And so, housing clearly is a problem not in Broward. We're talking Broward specifically. I know you've got Palm Beach County. I don't think it's any better there as well. And so let's talk about what you would do to give us some relief. My office, as you know, is on Sistrunk Boulevard. I checked with some of the new housing developments or buildings that are on. I mean, I'm happy about much of the new development and what have you, but if nobody can afford to live here, then that's not really advantageous to our community. So let's talk about your plan to do something to give us some relief on housing. We will start with the Congresswoman.
So First thing we talked about was the money that's coming in for housing, but I want to be very specific, the requirements that are being put up around it. We see that the money that we already brought down for housing has gone to the county. We're going to tweak that, to make sure that people can use it for their HOA fees, because many people can't have access to the rental assistance or housing assistance without paying that back pay for the HOA fees. But in addition to that, we're building single family homes with the money that's coming down. So you're going to find that these housing complexes aren't just the traditional housing that we used to have, but they also have single family housing. The reason that's important is because the housing crisis is not the usual low income that we think of housing. Now we're having a lack of workforce housing. And that's why we're changing the equation. I put forth that bill, we passed it to change the equation, and you're going to start seeing the allocation of those funds differently. The reason why we're not leaning into Section 8 housing is because Section 8 housing at this point, there is no housing available. But in addition to that Section 8 housing, there's a misconception behind it where people become scared of having that in their neighborhoods. And what we found is if we can build more affordable housing, workforce housing, and actually have programs, which we have one, the Building Bright Futures that just came out, expanding that program that helps you become a homeowner, helps you actually build a down payment. There's another thing that we have in the bill that we're going to be passing tomorrow. That's going to actually help more people to start saving and build up their credit for housing. So I have a robust plan for us not just to build housing, but to have us attain more home ownership in single family homes, so we won't see the reduction of the value of homes or people who have homes. And the people coming into these homes can actually have an asset, an equitable asset that's growing. So that's my initiative, to make sure that we're not just having housing, but that housing expands so people can actually grow and be economically mobile.
Thank you. Commissioner Holness?
Yes, so certainly there is housing available, but it's too expensive for most people. There's a long waiting list for those who are requesting the choice voucher as a Section 8 program. We must expand it right now, and also expand it enough to have those directed towards building new housing units so that we can work with our private developers or cities or counties to expand that and reward communities and cities that build inclusionary housing. What does that mean? It means that when you're building these new projects, Marcia, that included in those new projects are affordable housing units that will be there for 15, 20, 30 years, so that we can actually have people living in the communities that they work. Broward County, we have pushed for that. Unfortunately, the developers are not allowing the votes for it because they're blocking it by pushing back with certain of our elected officials. So I would reward those communities that build inclusionary housing right now, expanding it by using the voucher program, but also to ensure that we use that voucher program for home ownership also. If you look at the unincorporated area where I've been the county commissioner for a number of years, you look at all those new homes that we built over there. As my initiative, we got 40 built, 10 different nonprofits were able to get some uplift from the profits from those so that they could go out and do more. We got to help our nonprofits also in this regard. Minority Builders, Urban League, and several others were able to help build their housing, affordable housing capacity by utilizing this program for these units. So there's a lot that we must do. I've been in this business for a long time. I've been a chair of the South Florida Board of Realtors, the Black Real Estate Group that was formed in 1947 when Black people couldn't be realtors, and led that effort to increase home ownership. It is critical that we change the trajectory of our community by creating home ownership programs for our people.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Vice Mayor, I know that Fort Lauderdale is doing something. I got a call the other day about some plan for affordable. I hope they're affordable for all of us, because affordable, that's a very interesting word depending on city to city. So tell us your thoughts from should you be successful on how you can help the housing crisis.
Absolutely, President Ellis. Thank you. And again, I'm Ben Sorensen, running for Congressional District 23. The Congresswoman and Commissioner Holness are District, I think, 20. Do I have that right, Congresswoman? Okay, great. So what we're doing with affordable housing in the city of Fort Lauderdale, I think, can be a blueprint for federally, and what I'll push for is, one, taking city land and turning it into affordable housing. And affordable housing, to me, we got to look at 20 to 60% of AMI as affordable and workforce housing. That's our sweet spot. That's where we're focusing on. We've got to provide federal incentives for affordable and workforce housing developers to build. The government can't do this solely by itself. So when we provide incentives for that, and not only incentives from a zoning standpoint, but also financial incentives, that's when we start to scale and being able to get significant increase in affordable and workforce housing. Additionally, a lot of housing insecurity happens post-disaster, post-hurricanes. So what I'm going to be pushing for is working to get FEMA and HUD funding for disasters before the disaster hits. So help us to secure, ensure, strengthen our existing housing that oftentimes is disproportionately impacted when there are catastrophes. Help us secure that, get the funding in place so that post-disaster, post-hurricane, post-flooding, post-stormwater event, that our community members can stay in their homes successfully as a result of that increase. And then lastly, transportation. We've got to improve transportation here in South Florida. I'm working with the county and looking at regional rail. We're looking at multiple transportation options. So if we can bring down the cost of transportation, that also helps the overall affordability. And lastly, I would say, President, I'm honored to receive the endorsement of the Broward County Democratic Black Caucus and the Black Vote Broward, and we've had robust discussions about this with them as well. Thank you, President.
Thank you. And so the Black community is, when you talk about disparities in healthcare, we've got them. There's not an area that you can discuss where we don't lead in, whether it be diabetes, anything with high blood pressure, you name it, we got it. However, healthcare, the amount of healthcare that we have doesn't always work for a lot of us. Tell us your thoughts on affordable healthcare and how you would make changes so it is truly affordable for all of us to deal with some of our health disparities. We will start with Vice Mayor Sorensen.
Thanks, President. Healthcare is a human right. Everyone needs to have access to appropriate, fair healthcare. The research shows if we don't do that, in other words, as our system exists today, there is a significant disproportional impact economically on society because those without healthcare rely on the ER and so forth for their primary care treatment. So we need to do one of two options. We need to have a public option, a truly public option for healthcare so that everyone can be covered at an incredibly reasonable rate, regardless of the insurance they already have. The second option is Medicare for all. I'm a big believer in exploring both of those. And as a member of Congress, I'm going to fight to ensure whatever path we take, we've got to take one of those, a public option, Medicare for all, so that all are covered. Because if all are covered, all the data shows we drive down healthcare costs, we improve health outcomes, and we get better treatment. And I'm proud of where President Biden has been leading in helping getting the ability to negotiate prescription drug costs, and Congress has been leading. So I think we're heading in a good direction. We've got to keep doing more. Thank you.
Thank you. Congresswoman?
I've heard as a healthcare executive and working in healthcare, fighting this fight in Congress for more than 10 years, we've seen the disproportionate impact, and it really comes down to accessibility. Idealistically, I support Medicare for all, but there's a lot of people who are hesitating. So I've been proactively introducing different bills to expand healthcare step by step. And I've even used my community projects to do that. As such, I've allocated $5.5 million to go towards having tablets in multifamily homes. The reason why I need to start there is at the end game, I want to introduce a telemedicine portal for everyone who doesn't have healthcare, who can be able to access it for mental health, for if there's any kind of virus out there, for your comorbidities, which include high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, the things that really impact our communities negatively. Because the biggest these patient, where you could describe what you're suffering and they can respond to you with the proper healthcare professional. Now we just need to make sure that we can cover it. One of the biggest initiatives that we're about to sign tomorrow is expanding negotiation of prescription drugs, which is a great step, but it's not the totality when we talk about our community. Unfortunately, our community is burdened by not just having access, physical access, because we don't have the necessary medical facilities, but we also have economic accessibility issues. And so that's why I have a robust economic program to help incorporate it. But we cannot close our eyes to the cultural competency that's needed for the Black community. A lot of the times when we attend and talk to our doctors, they don't believe our issues and they just think that it's stress, not understanding that we're having a huge underlying situation. So cultural competency training, encouraging systems to actually take on the understanding of even how Black people describe what they're suffering is so imperative if we're talking about equality and making sure that once it is equitable and once it is accessible and it is affordable, that you can actually treat me not with the stigmas that have been taught realistically through the institution of medicine. And that's going to be by investing.
Thank you. Commissioner Honus? Going once, Commissioner Honus?
Okay, thank you. So let me start by saying that I have been helping with that regards. Broward Community Family and Health Centers, Ms. Rosalind Frazier, who runs that organization, has several centers within the Black community. And like there's food desert, there's actually places in our community where people have a tough time getting access. One of those sites that I helped her put in place when Congressman Hastings was around, working with him, sending in letters from the county as the commissioner, as the mayor, vice mayor, to support her application to the federal government to get funding. When funds came to Broward County, to send funds to her also, make sure she was in it. Because these centers, where they are located in Lauderhill at the bus terminal, that's a place where people get easy access to transportation. In Pompano Beach at Power Line and Atlantic, right in Collier City. So there's many places that we need to put more of these centers. We must put funding in place immediately to ensure that we have these sites readily available, like in the Glades where there's a high level of poverty and not enough healthcare programs available or sites available for people to visit. Also, the Medicaid program, the money that's coming to the state that this cruel governor won't utilize, we must go around him and make sure those dollars go directly to the people to help with the expansion of Medicaid so that more of our people can be covered. Preventative medicine is also essential, which means that we must work with our hospital district, not the Broward Hospital District, the other public hospital district, Memorial, ought to be at the forefront of being in our community and be incentivized for that. And if they're not doing it, then we'll withdraw funding to make sure that they're looking at the communities that are underserved to get services there that are readily available. They're taxpayer funded in great part, and we must ensure that they're doing what they ought to do to help those who are most vulnerable so they don't end up in the emergency room and we as a community pay more to take care of our people.
Thank you, Commissioner. And let me just say, there are in 23, Congressional District 23, both you and Ben and one other candidate were invited. Ben certainly hopped right on, I think right away as soon as he got the email. I did get a response from Jared Moskovitz, who said he had a previous engagement. I did not hear from Hava, who was also invited. I wanted to, there are like 85 people in your race, Ben. So my question to you is, why should we, there are a lot. There was a lot on 20 the last time out, but there was like I mean, seriously. So tell us, Vice Mayor Ben Sirs, candidate for Congressional District 23, why should we vote for you as opposed to the other 85 candidates that are in the race?
Right. I appreciate it. One, because I'm here. I'm the guy who's going to show up. I'm the guy who people have my cell phone number. You all are going to have it. We'll put it in the chat. And that's how I govern. I believe in community service and customer service. And so as a member of Congress, we're going to work together. We're better when we work together. And I'm going to be someone that is going to be incredibly accessible and partnering with you, just as I've been doing for years as a city commissioner in Fort Lauderdale and the vice mayor. Also, focus on my track record. The success, not only in the city of Fort Lauderdale in terms of reforming policing, improving affordability in the city and so forth, but also my work in the federal government at the highest levels of our national security apparatus, working with interagencies, working with government entities around the country, around the world. I'm going to be able to hit the ground running. And also it's the fact that one of my opponents is someone who's Jared Moskowitz, who's been worked for Ron DeSantis, says Ron DeSantis is a brilliant person and has supported a Trump super PAC through a company he worked for. That's not the values I think that we need representing us in Congress. I'm going to be someone who stands against Ron DeSantis and what I think are his racist policies, how he drew congressional districts to the exclusion of majority minority districts in Florida was wrong. I stood up against that. I'll stand up against all of Ron DeSantis's policies that I think are wrong-headed, which are too many to list right here. And I'm going to be a fighter. I'm going to be a fighter. And so that's why I asked for your support, Ben Sorensen, for Congressional District 23.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Holness. You've got 3. The other candidate was invited. She decided to, apparently, since she didn't respond, I guess she declined. Tell us why you are the best of the 3 candidates.
Experience of delivering, not making promises, but delivering for a community over a long period of time. Madam President, you know that I'm accessible. You call me, I call you back, and get things done. We solve the issues that face us. Being chair of the Broad Black elected officials since 2015 to this year, I built the Broad Black Action Plan, and whoever is in this seat must be as bold as Congressman Hastings was in taking on the issues that face the Black community. This will probably be 2 of the 28 seats in the state of Florida that have Black representation. So we must be bold. We must not be fearful. And those of you who knows me saw my work at the county where I built a legacy for others to follow, increasing the participation economically for our people, especially when it comes to contracting. Put it in place, a workforce investment program, targeting our community for those who are hardest to hire. Putting in place $4.3 million to OIC to hire those returning residents who have paid their dues for committing the errors that they made in our criminal justice system. Helping to get Black judges elected, helping to get other Blacks elected, being a founding member of the Black Chamber of Commerce. This has to be the office that brings our community together from all ethnic background, from all socioeconomic background, to build and strengthen this community. The city financial study that came out that I utilized to pass the Racial Equity Task Force, 37 different entities, including the Urban League and the NAACP, amongst many other large businesses and medium-sized and educational system and the police system and the clergy, to address the issue of systemic racism. It has to be that pulpit where the voice of our people are heard and pushed forward. We must ensure that we're investing more in our children, especially at early childhood education. I put together a thing called KAPOW, Kids Under the Power of Work, that goes into our elementary school system, bringing professional people there. Wholeness for Congress, I'll be your fighter, fighting for you, and continue to fight to build and strengthen our community.
Thank you.
This must be the seat of the voice for our people.
Thank you. And Congresswoman.
Thank you so much for having me. I think the biggest distinction of this is I'm the only one who served in Congress, and also I'm the only one who has federal legislative experience after advocating. But most importantly, I've been exercising the power of the pen and delivering results. When we saw what was going on with Ron DeSantis, who was trying to make sure we didn't have a district, I was the only member of Congress who actually had my team write a legislative brief, an amicus brief, saying that it was unfounded and could not happen, and we won that fight. When we came and we started fighting for equity and making sure we have economic justice, I went into Congress and I championed it boldly, and we won that fight. Right before Juneteenth, we actually passed the Federal Financial Services Economic Justice Act in Congress. In addition to that, I've been fighting for this community even before when I was elected. Look at my record before I was in Congress. I delivered results. I delivered wealth building contracts. We were were able to even deliver a roaming clinic for all of our medical needs. And at the heart of it, I've been the only one who can hit the ground running. And that's why I'm endorsed by all the Democratic leaders in Congress, from Nancy Pelosi to the Congressional Black Caucus, to even local leaders have endorsed me. This election, I tell everybody, is about integrity and the ability to articulate a federal legislative position and carry it out. A legislative position in Congress is one that you have to be honest, and you have to be a fighter, and you have to be able to fight intellectually and honestly. And I've been able to put forth my policies, my bold policies. And the only reason that our district right now is the largest Democratic district and the largest minority district of Black people is because I picked up that fight and fought it. When everyone said don't go against the governor, I did it, and we won District 20, and that's why we're still standing tall. So I encourage everybody to, let's continue this fight. Let's continue to bring economic growth. Let's continue to work with the administration. It's unprecedented to see so many members of the president's cabinet to come into the district to actually help bring down funding. It's unprecedented for us to have had the Vice President Kamala Harris last week in our district talking about a $1 billion investment into our community. Unprecedented. In addition to that, having Joe Biden's wife, Dr. Biden, come down here, and the expansion of healthcare for cancer access. One of the main reasons why I ran, we did that 3 months after being elected. Let's keep going. Let's keep shattering the glass ceilings. Let's keep doing bold things on the federal level.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I appreciate that. And so what we want to do is one last, if your campaign, if we want to reach your campaign for, I assume is it too late for donations? Or if you need volunteers or whatever, I want to give you just 10 seconds to say, contact us here. You can give a phone number. I know that the Vice Mayor has put it in there already. I'm asking the others to do the same thing. And one last closing remark, just to say how we contact you, and email, your website, whatever it is. And we will start let's start with the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, President Ellison. Thank you for having us. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Ben Sorensen, running for Congressional District 23. My cell phone's in there, 954-802-3311. Text me, call me, email me, bensorensen.com. Lifelong Democrat, fighting for our community. It'd be an honor to have your vote. Thank you, President.
Thank you. Congresswoman, 30 seconds. You're muted, ma'am. Muted. Okay.
McCormick, you can reach me at 954-668-5358. I've been endorsed by not just the unions, by leaders, but even the people in the community. You can also reach me on my website, which I put into the chat. Thank you so much for having me, Ms. President. And it's such an honor to work with the NAACP. And let's continue the great work that we started. Have a great night.
Thank you. And Commissioner Holness. Going once. Going twice. All right, someone is putting it in the chat.
Our community together for success. Thank you so much, Madam President.
Okay, so there apparently there's a ACP forum that's going on at the same time.
That's correct. So
okay,
so thank you so much for having me. I'm Dale Holness, the former mayor of Broward County. During COVID, I led this county and made sure we saved lives. We had a lower death rate than did Palm Beach or Miami-Dade County per capita because of the leadership that came forward. My website is wholenessforcongress.com, wholenessforcongress.com, and you can call me directly at 954-325-4040, 954-325-4040. Madam President, you know I answer my phone. So let's ensure that you put the person in place who's been here. I'm not a criminal, by the way. I don't run a criminal.
Okay, stop that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And remember, Ben Sorensen is running Congressional District 23, not the same district as the others were in District 20. Thank you all for joining us, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.